You are now live.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Scrutiny Commission for Charnwood Borough Council. There are a number of things I would like to remind people of before we start on the items of the agenda. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available online on the Council's website following the meeting. Under the openness of local government bodies regulations, people may film and record this meeting, and this is outside the Council's control. However, people wishing to film or record the meeting should do so in a way that it does not disrupt the meeting, the business of the meeting. Also, that the meeting is not disturbed, could I ask everyone present to please turn off their mobile phones or switch them to silent, to ensure that the environment is distraction-free. And can I remind everyone that this is a public meeting, so please conduct yourself in the appropriate manner. Thank you. As this is a virtual meeting, it will be run slightly differently. I wonder how many months we'll be saying that until it becomes the norm. Members will need to introduce themselves and state their names to confirm that they can hear and see the proceedings. This is important for the purpose of recording attendance and transparency of the meeting. I will do this by undertaking an alphabetical roll call. Members will use the raise hands feature in the participant section of the Zoom software if they wish to speak, and will be allowed to do so in a queue system. Can I ask each of the members of the committee to verbally say that they are present and they can hear and see the proceedings? Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm that I can see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, I can confirm I can both see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm both see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see the proceedings.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I can both see and hear proceedings.
Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. I can both hear and see the proceedings.
And I can verify that I can see and hear the proceedings as well. Then I will ask each officer that is present if they can see and hear the proceedings, starting with the leader of the council, Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Chair. I can see and hear the proceedings.
Thank you. Councillor Rollins, lead member for transformation.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm I can both see and hear proceedings.
The next on my list is Councillor Harper Davis, but she will be coming attending her item number 14. Karen Burnshaw, Head of Customer Experience.
Hi, Chair. Yes, I can confirm I can hear and see proceedings.
Sorry, I think I said Karen then.
That's
Kerry,
right.
Thank you. Sylvia Wright, Head of Leisure and Culture.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm I can see and hear proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen Gretton, Organisational Development Manager.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you. Eamon Khan, Information Technology Delivery Manager.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and see proceedings.
Thank you. Kevin Stanley, Leisure Contract and Business Manager.
Through you, Chair, I think he's going to be joining later as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Karen Widdowson, Democratic Services Manager.
Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see proceedings, and looking down the list, we need to go to Rob Mitchell as well, please.
Thank you very much. Nikki Conway, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. I confirm I can both hear and see proceedings.
Okay, Sally Watson, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see.
And Rob Mitchell, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear proceedings.
Thank you very much. Item 1, are there any apologies, please? I've had none confirmed with me.
No
there
apologies.
Are no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Minutes from the previous meeting on the 8th of February 2021 on page 5. Can I ask all members to verbally confirm that they have received and agree with the minutes? Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I've received the minutes and I'm happy with them.
Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I've received them. I'm happy with them too.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I've received the minutes and I'm happy with them.
Thank you. Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I have received and agree.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I have received the minutes and agree with the minutes.
Thank you. Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. I have received the minutes and agree with them. Thank you.
And I have received and agree with the minutes. So I can sign off the minutes as a true and correct record of the meeting on the 8th of February. Item 3 is disclosures of pecuniary and personal interests. I have not had any. Does anybody know any different? No? Thank you very much. So item 4 is declarations of the party whip. There's none to report. Item 5 is questions under scrutiny committee, and there have been none. Item 6, scrutiny committee structure. I'd like to ask Karen Widdowson to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So item 6 sets out the report about the scrutiny committee structure. So the current structure came into effect May 2019, following a review by the Centre for Public Scrutiny and Governance. It is now, though, timely to review the structure again in light of 3 reasons. The first one being that the current 3 directorate-based scrutiny committees no longer align to the new senior leadership team structure. The second reason is that during the pandemic, the Scrutiny Commission has suspended the 3 directorate-based scrutiny committees to enable officers to focus on recovery from the pandemic. The third reason is because financial savings need to be identified wherever possible. And also a supplementary reason I would add is that other district councils in Leicestershire, when there's been a comparison undertaken, Charnwood has actually got more standing committees than other authorities, in that we have 24 meetings a year. Therefore, the head of strategic support, Adrian Ward, undertook a consultation with 23 members who currently sit on the scrutiny committees. There were 2 options that were consulted on, and the report sets out the preferred option. The option number 2, which is set out on page 17 of the agenda papers, recommends that the following structure be adopted. So there would be a scrutiny commission continuing on the same basis as the scrutiny commission operates at present, with membership potentially increased from 7 to 9 members. It would also consider any scrutiny call-ins. There would be 12 meetings a year, and there would be pre-scrutiny of forthcoming cabinet items. The other committee that would be set up under the proposals would be a finance and performance scrutiny committee. This would be a new committee replacing the 3 current directorate-based committees, and there would be 4 meetings a year timed to the quarterly corporate performance reports. And they would also consider the revenue and capital budget monitoring, out and outturn reports, treasury management performance, and progress on the council's commercialisation strategy. The recommendation is that potentially the membership could be 15 councillors. And finally, the option would continue with these scrutiny panels or task and finish groups as they currently are. They would remain unchanged in that we have 4 a year, including the budget scrutiny panel. That's all I want. So that's the overall introductions to the item. So any questions and queries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, for explaining that to us. So the task before us now is to decide on option 1 or option 2, and option 2 has been the preferred one, and then it's up to our gift to decide on the membership, the amount that we would like to serve on those committees. So I shall open it up really to the councillors now, starting with Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 things to say on this, couple of statements and a question. My concern when this was first mooted was that there's a risk that the level and quality of scrutiny within the council could reduce to an unacceptable level if we reduce the number of committees that there are. So that's a comment. I'd be interested in other people's views on that. Just another observation, again for discussion, is I see no reason to increase the number of members of the Scrutiny Commission from 7 to 9. 7 has worked extremely well in the 2 years that I've been on the Commission, and that's a level at which I would like to see it retained. I also believe that a Scrutiny Committee of 15 people is potentially unmanageable. And it seems to me almost as if we've gone for 9 and 15 so that we have the same number of people that we currently have on the Commission and the 3 scrutiny committees. And I don't personally see that that's necessary. I think if we're moving to a new structure, then we need to sort of make what we move to fit, not what we currently have fit into the new structure. And my third comment is landlord services, which is currently served by the housing, etc., scrutiny committee. Will that be covered by the Finance and Performance Committee? Because it occurs to me that the money that we spend on landlord services is a significant percentage of our total spend as a council. And it seems that that Finance and Performance Committee would, under the new structure, have a phenomenal amount of work to do, which sort of takes me back to my first point about the level and quality of scrutiny. That's all I want to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bolton. Can I call Councillor Colin Hamilton, please?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, my comments are pretty similar to Councillor Bolton's. I quite like option 2, but then I do have an issue with numbers, and perhaps we need to reflect on, are we comfortable that there will be sufficient scrutiny with that structure? But that said, going with option 2, I would say that we have to say, is there a real driver to increase Scrutiny Commission from 7 to 9 members? I'm not overly convinced, but that's a point to discuss. One thing I am more comfortable with is that the Finance Performance Scrutiny Committee at 15, I think, is too big. And therefore, I would certainly be interested in other members' kind of thoughts, because I think 9 perhaps is a more reasonable number, a more manageable number for that kind of committee, and that we should consider recommending that it be reduced from what's here as 15 and down to about 9. I think that's all I really want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Daniel Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I obviously want to make sure that the level of scrutiny is at a decent level. I have had a few concerns lately, things that would used to go to the HPPR or the committee have been missed off the been missed off the Scrutiny Commission, and perhaps that's something. There's certain items that sort of come to the Scrutiny Commission that probably should have needed to be looked at earlier, and would have probably been picked up in the regular reports back to the previous committee. But that said, I just want to make sure that we are scrutinising things properly, giving them the right level. And I'm not quite sure about the numbers again. Seem a bit high. 15 on a on the finance committee. I think 50, it does seem high and very, very difficult to manage. And again, 7 on the scrutiny commission seems to be a good sort of number to work with as well. That's my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grimley. I'm extremely disappointed in the 23 members. Well, not all of them. I'm not disappointed with all of them. I'm disappointed with 17 of them for not responding to this. It's extremely important question, and it's one that a lot of people, well, we have opinions. We all have different opinions on it, and we've gathered 6 people's opinions, and that is all. But my preferred option was option 2. I certainly don't like the idea of 15 members, and whether it's 15 and 9 to carry on sort of an old boys network of 23, 24 councillors, because we want to keep the status quo the way it was. I don't think that's necessarily right. It's a new structure, and it's something that we should respect, that it's completely new. I do like number 7. I could work probably with 9, but 7 works really well. So I'd certainly not want any more than 7 for the Scrutiny Commission, but the Finance and Performance Scrutiny Committee, probably 9 on that because of the, making sure that it's quorate. And of course, we might get back to face-to-face meetings. I'm hoping that we'll get back to face-to-face meetings. And finance and performance, the quorate there, I presume, would be, is it 6, Karen? If it's 9?
So it would be,
sorry.
It's half plus 1, so it's a bit of a funny number, that one. So it's it's 5
5.5 councillors then, isn't it? Yeah. So how do we work that out? So
you should use a rounding up.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
Okay.
And then can I just suggest?
Yes, please.
So both Councillor Bolton and Councillor Grimley had concerns that some items might have been missed on the scrutiny work programme for Scrutiny Commission. And can I suggest that depending on which option gets proposed and agreed tonight, it obviously goes on to council, that there is a workshop for the work programme set up. And I think that would then make sure that those items are then considered as part of a work programme, which would then be approved at a subsequent meeting of the Scrutiny Commission.
We did discuss that in the half an hour before this meeting, and decided that was a good option to go for a workshop and to be run separate from the meetings. But the timing is going to be quite tight on that because we won't know the new membership of or the chairs, etc., of the new meetings until is it the 5th of May?
No, the 17th of May.
17th of May, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going on elections here, aren't I? 4th, 17th of May. So the deciding for the committee members will be quite tight between that and the first meeting of the Scrutiny Commission. Right, Rob Mitchell, would you like to come in there and have a word at all?
Thank you, Chair. Just to bring the committee's attention to one of the features in the report, which is the scrutiny panels, which would allow up to 4 to be created if there was a particular set of topics that warranted the setting up of a panel. So in terms of the amount of scrutiny, there is the option to make more use of the panels, including the annual budget scrutiny panel. So I just wanted to bring that feature to members' attention.
I think the task and finish panels have been extremely effective, and out of those comes conclusions and recommendations that probably can't be done in one meeting. You need to get outside people in and chew over a topic very well. So I think they are very effective, and we need to encourage task and finish meetings as well. So probably it's something that we could, because it's not just the scrutiny members, it's for all members of the council. So probably we could have a further training on task and finish panels for the whole membership, because to my knowledge, we've not had one for over 18 months now. And I know it's strange times at the moment, but I think we need to kickstart that off. Jonathan Morgan, have you got anything you'd like to say on this?
Thank you, Chair. I've turned off everything so I could actually listen and I wasn't going to be distracting anyone. Look, I mean, I genuinely, when this was discussed informally by Cabinet, the Cabinet's views were that actually it should be something that Scrutiny Commission looked at themselves and put back to Cabinet as a recommendation. So we are, I mean, I've listened to all the comments, you know, Jill, Colin, Dan's, yours. I mean, like you, slightly disappointed by the very limited number of responses. I suspect, as you probably do, that once we make the changes or any changes are made, that actually at that point, suddenly people will notice that there's something's been changed and suddenly become quite sort of vocal about it. But, you know, we've had 12 months now of a very different approach. I think in all sorts of ways, we've talked about lessons that we can learn from the way that we've worked differently through the pandemic. And it's not just about working from home and having Zoom meetings. It's also about some of the procedures and the ways that we actually operate. And actually some of those things will be coming through some of the constitutional proposals to full council as well, to try and actually simplify how the council works itself, whether it's by officers or whether it's interaction between officers and members, but also obviously how we actually scrutinise. And actually, I have to say the Scrutiny Commission has done a really good job over the last 12 months. It's taken on an extraordinarily full work programme, and it's consistently challenged Cabinet. As you know, some of the recommendations that Scrutiny Commission have put forward have been able to be taken on board. And have actually changed the way that Cabinet decisions have been made. So that level of scrutiny is important. Every organisation, if it doesn't have good scrutiny, every organisation that isn't scrutinised properly makes mistakes and produces bad policy. And that's why scrutiny is such an important part of what we actually do. And hopefully through the outcomes that we have here at Charnwood, demonstrates that actually it has a beneficial effect to residents and the way that the organisation works. So I'm genuinely, I'm listening. The points that you put across when you actually come to put this item to council finally as a change, I think that's the opportunity then to all of us will actually speak up and put those points point. I completely hear option 2 seems to be the preferred option, and on the numbers. I mean, 15 is probably quite a few people. I'm thinking of other committees that we have that are that sort of size. Planning is probably one of the larger committees. Licensing, in theory, when it's full strength, is also quite a large one. But 15 is a fair amount. I mean, it's but we'll listen to what you think is the most effective way of actually doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'd like to also point out that this isn't a cost-saving exercise because it is still chasing effective and strong scrutiny. It's just a happy coincidence that it is also saving money. Karen, at this point, can I put a recommendation through and then ask the councillors if they can support that?
Yeah, so there seems to be a consensus of option 2, so you can put that forward, and there seems to be a suggestion about numbers as well.
Yeah, so I would like to make a proposal that it's option 2, and for the Scrutiny Commission 7, and for the Finance Committee 9. Can I ask the councillors the committee members, if they could support that, please? And Councillor Bolton.
You need a seconder for that.
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm happy to second that, Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. So for all of those, can you say whether you support that or not? Councillor Bolton.
I support that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Yep, I support that as well.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I support that recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I do support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support the recommendation.
Councillor Ranson.
Yes, Chair, I support that recommendation.
And as I gave it, I don't think I need to support it as well. So that has passed, that we recommend to Council, to Cabinet, that it's as option 2, and the committee numbers will be 7 and 9.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And just for the record, this now goes straight on to Council at the end of April, so it'll be the 26th of April. And then there is a second recommendation to note that the monitoring officer or deputy monitoring officer will request that the independent remuneration panel will consider the special responsibility allowances which come into effect as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, item 7 is Audit Committee updates. So is there any update on the Audit Committee?
Through you, Chair. You did meet with the Audit Committee Chair and Vice Chair on Friday, and I believe there was no particular outcome that came out of that meeting.
Thank you. The discussion centred around the scrutiny meetings, and it also mentioned how important it is for the task and finish panels and how they need to be encouraged throughout the council as a really effective way of scrutinising a subject. Thank you. So now we have got item 8, which is pre-discussion scrutiny of any specific financial matters to be considered by the Cabinet. There are none. So item 9, Cabinet items for pre-discussion scrutiny. The following items have been put forward from the Cabinet agenda on the 11th of March. Item 9A is the ICT strategy, and that is page 18. I'd like to ask Roy Rollins, Councillor Rollins, to introduce the report. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for inviting me this evening. Firstly, this strategy is slightly later than expected because of the dreaded C word, so it has had some slight delays whilst officers have been retasked elsewhere, but it is before you tonight for hopefully your support. The importance of ICT, as I said in the foreword of this strategy, has never been felt as much as it has over the last 12 months. COVID-19 has been an absolute change in the way we do almost everything, and actually what it's shown is having a solid ICT strategy is essential in order to continue delivering services. As the strategy does set out, ICT is no longer an accessory to the way we do things. It's actually essential to how we operate as a council, which is like many councils across the country, if not all nowadays. So we continue to use and invest in ICT, and this strategy is the actual document that sets out at quite a high level, but also in some level of detail, how we will do so. We remain absolutely a customer-focused organisation, and this ICT strategy again reaffirms that commitment. But it's important that we also use this as an opportunity to capture the shift that we've experienced over the last 12 months and make sure we don't go backwards in progress for using ICT for the benefit of the council, which ultimately will assist with our programme for transformation and also improve the good service that we offer our customers already. As I've just mentioned, there are some quite technical details in this document, and you'll see that Kerry Bronshaw, and also we've got Eamon Khan here as well to answer any of the more technical points that you may have. But we are all here to answer your questions on the strategy tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to say before I go to Councillor Bolton, that this morning, before I wiped the sleep from my eye, I had a very irate phone call from an 82-year-old person about the census forms. Now, although it very clearly says on the census form, ring up this number for a hard copy, it's it doesn't. It says you will be, it doesn't say it clearly enough. It says you will be fined £1,000 before it actually says if you can't do it online, ring up for a hard copy. So I think what I want to impress that we need, and you did say you continue to be customer focused, but we need to really concentrate our minds on not assuming that people are au fait with going online and recording it there. So I'm hoping, and from what I've read, that is at the back of everything here.
Yeah,
but it was obviously when this paperwork for the census was done. But to tell somebody that's 82 that they will be fined £1,000 before saying that it can be a hard copy if you ring this number, we need to bear that in mind.
Thank you, Chair. I think just one quick comment on that point. As you may be aware, the council has partnered with Citizen Online specifically to look at what work we can do to reach out to our residents that aren't as au fait with computers and accessing our services online. So there is absolutely a commitment from this council to look after our ICT strategy and make sure we've got the solid foundations to deliver excellent services. But at the same time, we're investing in looking at how we can further support people to get online, and ultimately ensuring we've still got provision for our customers that simply cannot access our services online. And I think you'll see in the months to come, the customer service strategy that would normally come side by side with this strategy, but again, because of service pressures, has slipped slightly. But that again reaffirms a commitment to delivering excellent customer services, and that can't just be done online. ICT is a huge part of it, but it's not everything, which is why we've got that partnership taking place as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Roy. Councillor Jill Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say thank you to everybody that pulled together this report. I think it's a very comprehensive strategy. My question, and you may not be able to answer it tonight, so feel free to send me the information afterwards, please. On page 5 of the strategy, page 25 of the Commission papers, we talk about the unanticipated funding increase that was incurred for remote working. And I wondered if we had the numbers to hand in terms of what that cost was. If not, as I say, please send it afterwards. Thank you.
Can anybody come back on that?
Yeah, I haven't got those costs to hand, but I can certainly forward those on afterwards for you.
Thank you,
Terry.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is perhaps just a few observations more than questions, or perhaps questions within them. Yeah, I thought that the report was excellent. Of course, one of the challenges of this report is we're in a situation that's kind of moving. You know, we've had a very unusual year, which has kind of driven different ways of working and behaviours. So I suppose it's just to ask, are we comfortable that the strategy document has sufficient flexibility to exploit the options that are now available? By that I mean new ways of working, because obviously here we are meeting remotely. Now we don't know what legislation will allow us to do in the future. We don't at the present, but there'll be therefore options available from that. And therefore, are we comfortable we can therefore manage whatever those options are, how much we're allowed to work remotely moving forward, how much in person and perhaps mixed ways of working. Also, with regards to ways of working for staff, the options around increased home working, and that might mean a smaller requirement for office space, the hot desking and so on, because there's an expectation that a certain percentage of staff will always be at home, and do we have the flexibility to allow for that? I think we have already touched on the point of it's right and proper to put as much services online as possible and to make that as easy as possible to drive traffic of services online, but also have that protection for digital exclusion. And the other one is, of course, is affordability, because again, because of what's run through is whenever you want to transform, there's the cost associated with that. And so even though in the long run, you'll say this will be a cost saving, there's still an upfront cost to invest in that. So are we comfortable that we can deliver the strategy and the timescales that we want to do moving forward?
Yeah, Chair, can I respond to a couple of those points? So in terms of this strategy, it's not a brand new strategy. So this is a new strategy in the sense that it is a new one before you tonight, but of course there were previous strategies that this follows on from. And what this council showed last March 2020, was that the existing ICT strategy allowed sufficient flexibility and indeed set the platform for people to be able to move very rapidly to a home working model. And the ICT team did an absolutely extraordinary job of enabling almost all council officers to work from home basically overnight. So it almost accelerated any program of transformation beyond anything you could ever have imagined before. So, really an extraordinary pace of work was done. And you'll see there's much more in this strategy about the ability for, home working to continue. Hybrid meetings are referenced. So all of the mechanism is there within this strategy. The finer detail of some of it isn't there, but that's for very good reason. That's because we need the flexibility to adjust it and adapt it depending on what happens, because no one would ever have predicted what happened a year ago. But actually what the existing ICT strategy allowed us to do was to change the way we're doing things very rapidly, and that worked because the council continued to function primarily from home. So it absolutely does work. I don't know if Kerry's got any further comments on that.
If I may, I think just to kind of follow on from that, I think as you'll see from Win the Strategy, it shows how it links to some of the other strategies we've got in there. So our people strategy, etc. So where you talk about, will it be flexible enough for staff? Will it be flexible enough for members? What about accommodation? The board, this will also report into the SWAT board, which is looking at all of those things, transformation of the organisation, workspace, accommodation, people. So it's underpinning a lot of the other work that's going on in the organisation. But absolutely, it's a 3-year strategy, but because of the pace of change of IT, we recognise that we've got to be completely flexible as we go along. We've also got an excellent team in the IT department. So we've got developers in there who are looking at what we can do with the technology we've got, so that we can make the most of it. So Matt Goodyear and his team are looking at what more we can do with Teams, how can we exploit it, what can we use for phone calls. So we're doing absolutely everything we can to make sure we've got the most robust, forward-facing and challenge the norms in terms of the technology we have. So I think there is a good level of confidence that we have got the strategy right. We have looked at it and developed it in line with what the best practice, what's going on in the rest of the world, not just in public sector. To make sure we're prepared. We've especially looked at the security side of things as well, because we know with all the remote working, that's an extra challenge for us. So that's something else we've made sure that we're completely confident in terms of making sure our environment is secure. So I think from my perspective, all the hard work that really Eamon and his team have put into this have definitely showed in terms of meeting the things that you've said.
Thank you. Finally, are we okay? Are we comfortable with the affordability challenge of this transformation?
Yeah, so a lot of the networking side of things. So there's a whole program in there about moving into the cloud. So that has already got budget there. That's already set aside. So for the other areas of work, what we'll be doing is that on a business case basis. So as Councillor Rollins mentioned, the level of detail in some areas isn't in there yet, because actually we don't know what we need to do. There's more work to do depending on what comes out of the different areas that we're looking at across the organisation. So what we will do is a business case on that, and what we'll look for is return on investment and what we can do to maximise the opportunity of the systems we already have. So we are confident that where we need to invest, we will, and that we'll see a return on that, either in savings or in increased efficiencies, etc. So yes, we do have a confidence in the way that we'll approach that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen. Kerry has mentioned how much they've relied on the backup, which is your department. What are the challenges that you've had to face doing this? And are you going to be able to cope into the future?
The one thing I would say is that when I started to look at the strategy with the team about 18 months ago, near enough 2 years ago, there were the core principles in terms of making use of things like cloud technology, which will support remote working, supporting the digital platform, looking at the security side of things. So we already had some of this planned in. Now, obviously, with the environment we're currently in, all of these issues have come to the surface a lot faster. We have started to work on the programs. So the cloud migration, moving our infrastructure and our environment onto the cloud, that work is already happening. There are some of our teams which are already starting to look at applications and seeing how we could make better use of those applications. So we are starting to already build on the work that is taking place. The difficulty is balancing the existing infrastructure and building the new one at the same time. So keeping the lights on and making sure the infrastructure is working and making sure there are no issues with that and developing the new infrastructure. But I think we are taking it in a very piecemeal approach. So we are developing that in a very slow way. One of the things mentioned in the document is that we are going for a hybrid environment. So that's still keeping the on-site infrastructure and moving it slowly, piece by piece, into the cloud environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Generally, it is a good report. One thing I always do look in IT strategies is data backup and recovery. Having experienced it at another company where their data backup failed, it's certainly something I do keep an eye on. That looks to be a good strategy in there, which is good. I mean, just sort of pick up on the point about digital exclusion and talk about people who are older, not forgetting that, of course, as well, people in rural areas, which I do represent, do struggle with internet, broadband, and that sort of thing. So I think obviously we need to be mindful of that, and again make sure other sorts of methods are available. So I think the other, not necessarily with Charnwood, but with another authority, I have found that some officers are hiding behind emails not being accessible by phone. So it's not something Charnwood would say. It certainly is with particularly with Leicester City. I would say on that, particularly that plant I've seen to disappear off the face of the earth and don't return emails that have no phone number contact, which just need to be make sure that you know, as an authority, we're not going down that side, which I don't think we are, to be fair. So, so no, that's you just you know, making sure that there are other ways.
Councillor Grimley, you've frozen. So
I'm back again.
You're back again.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you were just rounding up.
Yeah, I was just summarising, just pick up the point again about poor internet when my internet cut out. So, brilliant. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Grimley and myself do have problems with Barkby at the moment, so that's obviously forefront of our minds. So, Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a few questions, but most of them really have already been picked up. But I've got a couple that I would still like to pick up on. They all are around item 4, the overarching technology principles, on page 8 of the report, page 28 of our agenda. So the first one is add value and innovation. And you've put that we must yield demonstrable benefits to the organisation and our residents. And I'm just intrigued to find out what we deem to be a benefit, because it's very easy to go out and spend lots of money on technology and say that there's benefits there because of X, Y, and Z reason. But where do we prioritise these benefits? What is there? Have we got anything in mind when we actually say demonstrable benefits? That's my first point.
Councillor Rollins?
I don't, as far as I'm aware, there's not a set criteria, and Kerry will definitely jump in if I'm wrong. But I think it's almost using a level of reasonableness and looking at whether we think it will either improve how we deliver services as an organisation, and fundamentally how that will impact on our residents. So whether it will improve their interaction with the council, because although we're making the point about having other ways of accessing our services, the accessing it isn't just, that's not everything. if someone wants to make a phone call to us or wants to visit our reception in ordinary times to access our services, the back office structure and the cloud structure and everything else that supports that still needs to work properly, and digital transformation and an ICT strategy has got to support that. So I suppose the answer is there's no set criteria as far as I'm aware, but it's just looking at the big picture as to how it will actually impact on the organisation as a whole, and also our residents and their interactions with us.
Thank you. Kerry, you've got anything?
Yes, thank you. I think it's quite, there isn't a set criteria. I think what we want to make sure we don't do is just swap like for like. We don't want to just say, oh, we're just going to carry on rolling on with this system. Whenever we have the opportunity to review a system or a different way of working, we want to challenge it. Can we get something better? Can we get something that's less expensive? Can we do more with it? Can we take out unnecessary waste in the system? Can we improve the service that we can offer to the customer? So it's just about making sure that we don't just accept like for like all the time, that we are always constantly looking at how we can improve things through the systems that we have. Back to what I said about maximising the investment that we make. You know, if we've got one system, can we use it across multiple areas? So for example, one of the replacement systems we're doing at the minute is actually replacing one system across 5 areas. So that's given us a real benefit, one in terms of cost, but also in about learning from each other's departments, how we can make improvements in one area that will then be reflected in other areas as well. So no individual criteria, but always looking to challenge what we've got and make better use of what we can.
Thank you. Yeah, I did get that from the report. My only feeling is that I think we could maybe just refine that down a little bit so that we do have clear aims of what we are trying to achieve, rather than just saying we're looking at improving everything. Maybe if we can give ourselves some direction, but on the whole, the ICT that we deliver, I think, is outstanding. So I'm not knocking anything, and the report itself is very in depth. The next point is digital by choice. On the same page, you've got a comment, so good that users would prefer to use them. And it almost touches back on the point that Councillor Seaton made right at the beginning of people that aren't as technically savvy will always pick up a pen and paper over an iPad or a laptop. So is there anything within that you're aiming to try and make it more accessible for these individuals, i.e. maybe devices that are touchscreen like the iPads with pens and things? Is there anything within that you've got ideas on that might be a little bit more refined than just saying so good users would prefer these?
So, Chair, if I may come back. Yeah, so the point here, Councillor Brooks, is if I need to report a missed bin, for example, I've got a couple of choices. I can pick up the phone or I can go onto the website. We've got to make the processes in those sorts of cases as easy as possible, to the point where a resident or user of our services, or indeed a member of staff, if they've got to interact with some interface, would prefer to use that method rather than pick up the phone and tie up someone in the contact centre for a while whilst they're on the phone to them. So it's about looking at everything we do and making sure that we don't put obstacles in the way. So someone's not going onto the website and going through 4 different pages and clicking 5 or 6 different options just to report something that could be done in 2 clicks. So that's the point of that particular part, digital by choice, making it a preference. And same for staff as well. We want the internal infrastructure that we have to be so accessible and usable to staff that they want to use it, they want to embrace change, they want to embrace the transformation, because it can actually improve the way that they do their jobs, and it can be an asset to them, not a hindrance. And that is what digital by choice is about. It's about making it so user friendly, people actually want to engage with the processes that we've put in place, and that's what this ICT strategy helps to achieve.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. No, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go back to my 82-year-old resident as well, who has a smartphone, but she can't do it on the smartphone because it's too small. So when she enlarges it, again, she can't read the full screen. So that's also probably, I don't know, it's magic to me. I don't know the back of workings of a computer, and I don't really want to know. It just magically works. So that's probably something else digital by choice. She would like to do it, but doing it on her smartphone is something that she can't do because she can't see as well as youngsters. Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I must agree. It's a reasonably good report, but like Councillor Seaton has said, for the elderly in the community, it can be a little bit daunting. The only thing is, it's only a suggestion. Could we not actually put in some sort of caveat in the sense of a simple guide card, you know, a card if people ring up and say, I can't do this, I can't do that. And if there's a guide that could be actually given to them or put at the front desk. The other thing I would like to bring in as well, people who don't or cannot afford anything digital, like people are, you know, let's go back to people who need to look for houses and things like that. You know, people on universal credit, I know they all have got phones and that, but to come into the front lobby at the council office and do their bidding online, is that going to be open and visible again for people when we get back to normal? Okay, thank you. I think that is some of the, if I think of anything else, I'll ask. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, sorry, Chair.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note this is a high level document, so it's a strategy document, and this document links into 4 key policies. So we've got the corporate strategy, the strategic direction document, the customer service strategy, which you'll be seeing in the coming months, and also the people strategy. So it's not going to go into the level of detail where we would kind of give guides out to residents, but the overarching themes are clear from the strategy. And if there are improvements that can be made in terms of accessibility, then that will absolutely be looked at. I don't think that's a problem. But in terms of a really key point is the contact centre is still there. Reception is still open and available for people to make appointments, and you know, we'll review that as and when things change and you know, the law changes and people can come in a bit more freely. So that all still exists, and this strategy is not about taking that away. And as I said a bit earlier in the meeting, it's not just about changing how people access services, it's about the back office infrastructure that allows us to deliver services more efficiently. So when someone needs to come into reception or needs to phone our contact centre because they're not able to access our services online because of their individual circumstances, that's fine. We're still there for that customer. We'll still help them. And if we've got a solid infrastructure sat behind that contact, it will do nothing but benefit the customer and also the council. And that's what this document's about.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I thought, you know, just clarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. I've got no more blue hands up. Is there anybody else that would like to come in here at this point? No? Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to know really with the committee, will support the recommendation that the ICT strategy 2021 to 23 attached as appendix, it just stops there, so it's an appendix whatever, be approved. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to approve it.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, very happy to approve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to approve the report.
Thank you. Councillor Harsh-Nicolau. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to approve the report.
Councillor Ranson.
I'm quite happy to approve the report, Chair. Thank you.
And I approve the report as well. One last time for Councillor Harsh-Nicolau. Thank you. So that means the Commission supports the report, the recommendation going to the Cabinet. Item 9B is the corporate delivery plan, and that's on page 57. At this point, can I say thank you to Kerry, Amen, and Councillor Rollins, are you staying? Or going? If you're going, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to head off now, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Morgan, would you like to introduce this report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report is the delivery plan attached to our corporate strategy. We've just discussed, obviously, the ICT strategy. Many of you will probably remember back in January 2020, this is our our corporate strategy. I keep it very, very handy on my desk, as the Chief Executive well knows. Obviously that sets out our strategy for the 4 years of this administration. It's derived from the administration's manifesto, which obviously took place from the election the previous year. But to make sure that we deliver on the corporate strategy, we set out 4 yearly corporate delivery plans, and the one before you this evening is the second of those. The actual corporate strategy obviously was passed January 2020. It was one of the last things we did before the pandemic struck and we went online. You probably may remember also the corporate delivery plan that we put in place for last year. Obviously, you know, the pandemic absolutely well and truly overtook us, but I have to say we've achieved a huge amount during that year, other than just supporting our residents. And the corporate delivery plan this evening is obviously for the coming year, 2021 to 2022. It is the Chief Exec's document. It's the officer's document for putting into place what's required from the strategy. And you'll see from the content the broad range of different activities that are being carried out over the coming year, and also different timescales, etc., attached to that. And the devil is always in the detail, and how we actually deliver things is important for residents. But what we've tried to do is prioritise what's important to us and for residents within the borough, to make sure that those things are put into place. So obviously any detailed questions, Chief Exec's here. Helen obviously also, Helen is probably one of the chief owners of this document, apart from the Chief Exec. But as I said, all of this relates back to the corporate strategy, and that itself is, as far as I'm concerned, is my key sort of driving document. The corporate delivery plan very much is the nuts and bolts of how we actually put that into place and make sure that the residents benefit from what's in the strategy itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rob, before we start really drilling down with those questions for you, is there anything you would like to add to what Councillor Morgan has said?
Just briefly, Chair, I think just to note that this year's plan does have a couple of references at the front end in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic and the response and recovery work that we'll still need to do. So its format is slightly different to previous years. But the format then picks up on previous years, sets out the priority actions against the strategy objectives. And as the leaders rightly said, it is a way for us as officers to organise ourselves in terms of priority actions and resources. And underneath this is, of course, the service delivery plans for the individual heads of service and their teams to follow through some of the other actions that aren't listed in this document, but we will be doing perhaps as business as usual for our services. So I think happy to leave it there and then answer any questions that you and the committee may have, if that's okay, Chair.
Thank you. Thank goodness for Councillor Bolton. My only blue hand up at the moment, so Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got 2 questions, please. The first one, I'll take them one by one because they're very different. My first question is, we've got this great, fantastic aim to become carbon neutral by 2030, but we're all aware from the budget that actually the funding of that aim has been significantly cut in the budget. So I think my question is, are we realistically going to achieve that with the heavy cut in the budget?
Who's going to take that one?
I've indicated, Chair, if you're happy for me to come in.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Unless the leader wants to come in, I wasn't sure if his hand had gone up or not, but I'm happy to come in if
this had been the strategy, I would have quite happily have talked, but it's the delivery plan, so it's down to you, Chief Exec.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you. I think it's probably worth noting that whilst a lot of the capital budget associated with the carbon neutral plan came out of the capital programme, that's really a reflection on where we are in terms of the impacts of COVID, and a lot of that capital money was associated with changes to the building, so particularly Southfields, which drives a lot of our cost. So we're currently reflecting on how to deliver on the carbon neutral plan, reflecting on what activities we might need to take. Most of our sort of carbon output is through either our fleet or through our buildings, and we are very focused at the moment, as you know, at looking at, based on everything we've discussed tonight, actually, in terms of the ICT strategy, the people strategy, agile working, what we might need going forward in terms of accommodation. So I want to try and get a bit more resolution on where we're going to go with our accommodation before we perhaps decide whether we should invest lots of money in Southfields to make it more carbon neutral, when one of the options might be to leave Southfields and find a newer, more efficient and beneficial office base. And that, until that's resolved, I think it's right to just pause on some of that capital investment, which is why we saw some of the changes in the capital programme. So I think we've still got a lot of work to do. So even taking that on board, there is an awful lot to do to make us carbon neutral. And it also is worth repeating around the business case idea. So we've got to make sure that where we are making these investments, not only do they support carbon neutrality, but hopefully they move us forward as an organisation on other matters as well. So hopefully that answers your question,
Okay.
Councillor Bolton.
Thank you. My second question relates to page 75 of the Commission's agenda pack. You talk about commercialism and we need to operate more commercially, etc. My question is, as a member of the Commercialisation Scrutiny panel, we worked, and Councillor Hamilton was also on that panel, I recall. We worked really hard and I think produced a good report from that. Will the report from the Commercialisation Scrutiny panel now be revisited as input into the corporate delivery plan, please?
Rob?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. So the report from the commercialisation panel was really well received at the time, and it fed into some of the work we did in terms of our commercial strategy, and there was some very good discussions. I don't think that work's ever really gone away, so the recommendations are still live and being acted upon. So I think, in short, the answer is yes, we could probably do a quick revision and revisit of the work that the panel did just to check how much progress has been made. But I recall one of the examples of recommendations being around sort of the culture and training and support for staff, which is now embedded in things like the people strategy. So I think a lot of those recommendations have been taken on board and put into effect through various documents and strategies and approaches that we've got, but quite happy just to do a touch base back with it to see how much of it has been taken on board and if we've missed anything. So if you leave that with me, I can prepare something and respond with that in perhaps a couple of months' time, if that's okay. Just with everything else that's going on, it might not be a quick thing to do.
That's perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just going back to that, the question has just popped into my mind. Probably I shouldn't be asking this at the moment, but what the heck. Do we actually have a register of all the mileage that's being saved from workers not coming in to work and working from home?
So through you, Chair, we do obviously have records of previous year's mileage claims, and we'll obviously have the claims for this year's mileage, and that will show a difference in terms of the amounts being claimed. And as you may be aware from the sort of budget papers, we are looking at the various efficiencies and looking at some of the schemes relating to essential car user mileage and so on, to see how we might look at developing those for the future based on sort of the changes that we've all seen over the last 12 months.
Thank you. Councillor Grimley.
Oh, Councillor Grimley, he was to me, meant me. Again, it's not normal sort of moan on these things in that they are very Loughborough centric, and Loughborough is a sort of set central part, but just looking down the the town's regeneration, what we've got here, Loughborough Master Plan, Town Deal Loughborough, Carillion, Loughborough as a destination, Loughborough right Bedford Square, just right at the very bottom, Shepshed. again, looking down, I suppose the cultural visitors have got the outwards on there. Then we've got Loughborough here, developing plans for Loughborough Market, developing. It's just and take works for Granby Street car park, window replacement in the Beehive car park. I know Loughborough is important, but I think just need to make sure that other areas aren't forgotten on these things. That's my only comment, really.
Are all these areas though owned by and managed by Charnwood Borough Council,
so,
and therefore have an influence on them?
So through you.
Sorry, carry on.
Yes, Rob.
Sorry, Chair. Would you like me to come back on?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I think that's a feature, obviously, of our makeup, our characteristics. But I think the point is well made that we need to ensure that we aren't forgetting about other parts of the borough, which we don't. We're very focused on the whole of the borough. This year, perhaps in particular, there's a number of items that relate specifically to Loughborough because of the town deal opportunity that came through, also because of the 800-year anniversary around the markets and the fair. So those are there. And then there are a number of capital programmes which relate to Loughborough because of the Bedford Square or in terms of the Beehive car park. So I think it's perhaps a feature of this particular plan that there are that many projects related to Loughborough. But the point's well made by Councillor Grimley that we are here to serve the whole borough, and I'm confident that if you look through the range of council services, that we do ensure that we focus on the whole of the borough as a whole entirety and a holistic approach, and don't get too drawn into Loughborough as a town centre.
Councillor Grimley.
Yeah, thank you. That is a good reply. Thank you. Just don't forget the other parts. That's all.
No, Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just the healthy communities on page 70. I'm quite pleased that we're looking at possibly measuring and looking at housing for outside of. Like as Councillor Grimley said, outside of Loughborough, we're looking at so that is empty homes brought back into use and results of action by the council. Can anybody answer me how are we hoping to get this promoted and done?
Thank you, Rob.
Through you, Chair. So I think Councillor Ranson, I'm just quickly checking on
it's page 70.
Page 70. So is
yeah,
that
of the report, healthy. Yes, I've got another question as well.
Yeah, so I'll perhaps need to get some more details from the head of service, but in relation to the way that operates, we're using some of our right to buy receipts to purchase additional properties to meet our needs, and you'll have seen some of those come through at full council following the purchases. So we're looking at a range of locations, and obviously the types of housing that we purchase need to fit very much with our profile of housing need. So it is something that's happening across the borough. We have a specific officer who looks at that and takes that forward for us. So if you would like any further detail on top of my response, I'm happy to provide it outside of the meeting.
Yeah, thank you. And the other thing is helping those who are in need of housing, because we have got quite a few, and we will be having quite a few people that will maybe lose their homes through this scenario that is not nobody's problem. So are we more or less measured up to maybe try and cope with it? It's not that situation.
Through you, Chair. So the housing advice team and our team that supports homelessness, very conscious that we need to prepare now for obviously potential increases around people at risk of homelessness. And you'll be aware that we've done a huge amount of work during the pandemic to keep people off the streets. We've worked very closely with our charity and voluntary sector, and also we've used some of the grants from the Home Office, MHCLG rather, sorry, to deliver on that. And there is currently a number of plans to try and prepare as best we can to make provision in the event that we do see a rise in homelessness. So at this stage, reasonably confident that we are doing all we can to mitigate the current and future needs around homelessness.
And the other last, I'm finished now, Chair, nearly. Leisure centres. Are we actually hoping to get back to some sort of formula, some sort of leisure type of thing eventually in our leisure centre?
Indeed.
I think that's the next item, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's on. Yeah, is it? Okay, page 70. I'm looking at it. Healthy communities, leader.
More will be revealed, I think, with the next item.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Rob. Sorry, but I thought, well, I wanted to ask lots of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ransom. Well, there's no more hands up. If any other officer would like to speak on it? No. So
Chair,
Sorry?
can I just say, Helen hasn't said anything.
I know, I was just
this is
directly looking at her in my top right-hand corner saying, would any officers like to do it?
I Helen, yes. Is there anything you'd like to say, Helen?
I didn't realise, of course, you can't see me staring at you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think the questions have all been answered in a very comprehensive way. So thank you for the questions from the committee.
It is a very concise plan. It doesn't waffle. It was easy for me to read. That's saying something. So, and it's absolutely every I's been dotted and T's have been crossed as far as I could see. I came out with no questions for you. You'll be glad to hear, Rob. Now, Rob's put his hand up, so over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. So just by closing from me, I just would like to say thank you to Helen and all my sort of colleagues that have helped pull this report together, but principally Helen, who has obviously worked with the heads of service and across the authority to pull it together. And as you say, it's a very thorough piece of work, but it is on top of all the other things Helen is currently doing to support the organisation in terms of transformation and also in terms of the COVID response. So this year was particularly demanding, I think, given the circumstances. So yes, quite right to put our thanks on the record to Helen for her support in pulling this together.
Thank you. Just when I thought it was all over, Councillor Brooks.
So it's not actually a question. It's more just just a statement, really. I find the layout of this strategy much easier to digest than the former strategy, and I don't know if there's anything we can do to create kind of a template for strategies going forward, but this strategy was very easy to read and take the information from. So yeah, well done.
Thank you.
And you see, we're making up for it now, Helen, so well done. Right, is the committee able to support the recommendations that 2021-22 corporate delivery plan appended to this report be approved to the Cabinet, and that delegated authority be given to the Chief Executive in consultation with the leader to make minor amendments to the corporate delivery plan? Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to support the recommendations.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to support the recommendations.
Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. Very happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Good, Chair. I'm happy to support the recommendations.
Councillor Ranson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to support the recommendations.
And I would like to support the recommendations as well. So thank you very much. And Helen, and you're free to go.
Thank you,
unless
Chair.
you want to stay, Helen. Right, the next item is 9C, which is an exempt item for the Leisure Centre contract recovery update. So this will be considered as item 14 on the agenda. So we go straight to item 10, which is pre-discussion scrutiny for the Cabinet response for page 82. And I ask Karen Widdowson to introduce the report to note. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very straightforward item. It is to note the responses to the recommendations of the Scrutiny Commission on the item. It was an exempt item that was considered at the last meeting regarding future arrangements for the delivery of planned works, voids and associated works. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the committee okay to, do you need to ask any questions, or are we just okay to note this? Okay. I don't have to take a vote, do I, Karen, on this one? So that is noted. Next one is item 11, scrutiny work programme, and it's page 84. Karen, Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. So this is the usual report we've been having with the 3 directorate-based committee work programmes attached, where the committee normally go through and ask for any items to be brought forward to any Scrutiny Commission meetings. I would ask that we're going to add an item of the General Fund, the HRA Revenue Monitoring Report goes to July, October and December meetings in the new structure going forward. And I also ask that a suggestion, which has already been muted earlier, that we have a scrutiny work programme workshop after the AGM on the 17th of May. And so these work programmes that are attached to this report would be gone through as part of that workshop to develop the work programme going forward. Thank you. Any comments?
Any comments from anyone? I've not identified anything either, Karen, so thank you, apart from the workshop.
Okay, so there's no items been identified, and you're obviously in agreement with the suggestion of a work programme workshop, and then that particular item I've mentioned being added for future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we go on now to item 12, which is page 95 on the agenda, which is the Scrutiny Commission's workshop. Karen, thank you.
Thank you. So this item again is to enable the Commission to review its work programme, and it's its own particular work programme, and look at the list of forthcoming decisions going forward that go to Cabinet. There are a number of items scheduled for the 6th of April meeting. However, we have noticed that for the 4th of May, there are no items potentially identified at the moment. I won't remove the meeting from the schedule of meetings, but potentially that meeting might actually be cancelled. So I'm just making you aware of that. And also I wanted to highlight that the Cabinet on the 11th of February, they have some actions that have come out from the budget scrutiny panel, and I would consider that we can include those items as part of the scrutiny work programming workshop later in the year. We can include it in there because that impacts on the work programme, those actions. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much, Karen. Right, so that leads us on to item 13, which is no.
Councillor Grimley's got a query.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Grimley.
Just a comment on the work programme. I see it's on the to be programmed Charnwood local plan. I think it'd be useful to have something back up as an update as to why it's now being delayed and proper scrutiny of that.
So, Chair, if I could come through,
yes.
I have been working with the planning officers to identify potential dates for the local plan to come back. So at that point, once we know which date we are going to aim for, then we can report it back into the next Scrutiny Commission, or outside of the meeting arrange for pre-scrutiny, and depending on which date gets chosen. There's about 3 options at the moment, so thank you.
It was obviously, as you know, down to be scrutined for this meeting, so it would automatically, as soon as it's ready, come back to this meeting.
Yeah, well, would perhaps like to know more on the delays. That was all, which would just be
okay.
Given.
I understand an email was sent
yes,
out
it was.
To all councillors last Friday, or was it? No, actually, it was Wednesday evening.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, got the email there, which is useful. But I mean, whether I speak to Richard Bennett directly, but I still think it's something that is giving a lot of councillors big concerns on.
Okay, thank you. Right, at this point, I'd like to welcome Councillor Lee Harper-Davis, and I'd like you to verbally say that you can see and hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, it's Councillor Harper-Davies. I'm logging in for the Leisure Centre exempt item, and I can see and hear proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if there's no other questions of clarification, I'd like to move to the exempt item, please. This item proposes to exclude members of the public from the meeting during the consideration of the following items on the grounds that it will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. And it is considered that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So I propose that it will not be recorded. Can I have a seconder, please?
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Right, I would like the committee to verbally agree with that, please. Councillor Bolton.
I agree, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Councillor Grimley.
Thank you, Chair. I agree.
Councillor Harsh-Nicolau.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I agree.
Councillor Ranson.
I agree, Chair. Thank you.
And I agree also. So the Scrutiny Commission is in agreement to exclude the public